Our founder, his name is Dr. Ernest Holmes, and he was born in New England, and he was born and raised, educated there. And then he gravitated to the West Coast, where he did his teaching and healing work. Now, he was greatly impacted as he grew up by the writings of Emerson and the American Transcendentalists, also by a British judge named Thomas Troward, and then by reading some of the earlier translations of the Hindu texts of the Upanishads. And he put all of that together in what he eventually would do. He was a wildly popular and powerful speaker, filling some of the biggest auditoriums wherever he went. And he also then became a prolific writer as well. Now, our teaching then actually is a blend of Eastern and Christian mysticism. And we also bring into it the deep mystical teachings of all the faith paths, which is why on most Sundays you will hear us bless all faith paths, the deep truths in those paths, because that's what sources what we're all about. We often call it the golden thread of truth that weaves throughout all of the various paths. And this teaching is also meant to be a very practical spirituality. You know, something that we use in every area of our lives, not just reserved for Sundays, but for every day and every moment of our lives. Dr. Holmes wrote, "The science of mind and spirit is a direct approach to God and conscious use of God power in every activity of living." You see, we use this all the time and in every way. Now, our movement, we're part of a worldwide movement. It used to be called religious science, but that became increasingly confusing to folks. And I need to share with you some of the things that we are not. We are not Christian Science. We are not Scientology. We've never been any of that. I think another thing is that as you understand this, you realize that we're not a traditional spiritual approach. We're non-traditional, and yet we bring forth new rays of light that I think are very important and valuable in the spiritual landscape. Now, in this regard, please understand that our teaching is called the science of mind and spirit. That's our teaching. Now, we are a part of a movement now called Centers for Spiritual Living. We're also a part of a larger umbrella movement called New Thought, simply New Thought, or New Thought, Ageless Wisdom. Now, our movement is not a heavy-handed, controlling, domineering kind of religion. We're not into that, you know. Too much religion in the past has been toxic, cultivating lots of fear and division. And I think that more and more individuals are waking up to that and sadly enough, opting out of those kinds of thought systems. I actually believe that there are twin sins of religion, if you look at history. The twin sins of religion are absolutism and authoritarianism. Absolutism, the declaration that there's only one teaching or one valid truth, and all others are invalid or inconsequential. Now, that kind of absolutism then usually spawns authoritarianism, and that becomes a heavy-handed, controlling church, telling people what to do, what to think, how to live, making their choices for them, and otherwise intentionally manipulating them. And in that regard, then, this kind of authoritarianism has, over history, been the starting point for so much aggression and division and discrimination, violence, and even racism. And so we're really not involved in that whatsoever. We want to be a new answer to those kinds of tendencies. Now, in that regard, science of mind, in this teaching, we don't tell people what to think. How in the world would we ever want to tell a bunch of rebellious people like you what in the world to think? I love that about you, by the way. You're free thinkers, you're self-reliant. We don't tell people what to think. We aspire to help people learn how to think. And to think beyond the old ideas, the old concepts, the old limits in their life. Now, we have no political affiliations or leanings. We don't tell you how to vote. We don't endorse or denounce any candidates or public officials. We don't do that. We leave that to your own guidance in your life. Now, what we do is that occasionally we do speak out about instances of social injustice, wherever we notice those, wherever we notice things going on that are incongruent with our ultimate vision, and that is oneness revealed. We want to be a part of the evolution of spirituality. Our founder wrote, "The religion of the future will appear when religion gets over its superstition, science gets over its materialism, and philosophy gets over its duality." We are forerunners in a campaign of spiritual freedom, intellectual integrity, and emotional stability in a spiritual world. It is our privilege to take part in a new spiritual renaissance. In 1927, our founder, Dr. Holmes, was asked to write a clear, concise, and definitive statement of what we're about, what we believe. And he sat down, and it said that he wrote it in 20 minutes. But Dr. Holmes didn't write this to be a rigid, closed creed, but instead to just express the basic principles that we are about and that we build on. Because he said, as a spiritual movement, let us remain open at the top. I love that. Remain open at the top for further revelation and new understanding. And that's what we aspire to do. So the first excerpt from that great document, What We Believe, is this. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So in that statement, we're introduced to the most essential, fundamental principle in this great teaching, and that is the allness and the oneness of God, of the Creator, of the Spirit, of the Source. Now, we use many names for the divine, and if the word God is troubling to you because of your background, then there are many others to choose from. Find the one that resonates with your heart, the beloved, the Spirit, the divine, infinite mind, infinite love, whatever works for you. The infinite is beyond any words we would ever have for it anyway. And yet what we are coming to understand in a statement such as this is what the enlightened masters have tried to say throughout the ages, and that is, God is really all there is. God is all there is. And all creation is brought forth out of the divine, and all creation lives within the divine, even though we don't see that with our senses. Everything is living within the infinite intelligence, love, and power of the divine. So this is beginning to understand the divine or the Creator as something fully present, everywhere, at all times. Not a distant God, off in a cloud somewhere, but a divine reality, an infinite truth, life energy, love, a power, the very power of life itself, in our midst and expressing as all there is. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. So this is suggesting then that we, every one of us, is an expression of that one life, that ultimate life. You are an expression of the life and the love and the power of the divine. You're not just created by the divine and cast off separate from it. You live within it and you are created of it. And so therefore we become aware, and it's so powerful to know this first day, that you and I are not primarily physical beings, even though we most often primarily identify ourselves as our bodies. Instead, we are actually spiritual beings, primarily, having a human, a worldly, and a material experience, and yet we are ultimately and always spiritual beings. Or as the great teacher Jesus said, you are in the world, but not of it. For you're a child of the universe, of the Spirit. We believe that heaven is within us, as the great teacher said, and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. And so to indeed become conscious of this heaven within, this perfect Spirit within, is one of the highest missions of our teaching. And we can all be about that. You wouldn't be here if you were not on that pathway. That's why our classes are so important. This movement didn't start out as a church. It was first an educational institution teaching these classes because there are things that we can learn, a lot we can unlearn, and then tools we can put to use. That's what's transformed thousands and thousands of lives and what's available. We believe, Dr. Holmes wrote, in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. Therefore, we declared last week, we are spiritual beings, always have been, always will be. We are spiritual beings made of spirit, living within spirit, and expressing spirit. And that we are all endowed with divine qualities and capacities and a limitless potential. And so God didn't make a mistake with you. God does not make mistakes. But what can get in the way in our lives are the life-limiting stories and the false ideas that we own and that we put to work in our lives. And we'll discuss today how it is that we are so vastly creative. But these things that we invent, they are the things that seem to block us from the divine and temporarily cut us off from the flow of the supply of that which we need for fulfilling and effective living. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. You see, this is sharing that the divine is the very love that we are, and it is the greater intelligence and the greater love, and it seeks to give us everything we could ever desire. But we stay in these little mental models of life, these little confined concepts of who we are. And I'm encouraging you to open to your dreams. Listen to that spirit within you. What's the callings? What's the opportunities that don't have to be deferred anymore? So Dr. Holmes also, in what we believe, said, we believe in the healing of the sick and the transforming of conditions through the power of this mind. Obviously, we believe that there can be healing that goes forth. In fact, our founder, Dr. Holmes, at one point said, ours is a teaching and healing order. We're primarily here to teach these principles. There's a key to it. There's a key that is all important in this, understanding this whole thing of our healing capacity. And it is that every one of us is whole spiritually now and forevermore. What this means is the truth of you, the true you, not your circumstances and all the stuff going on in your life, and not even your body, but the true you, being born of pure spirit, is already whole. It will always be whole. It is untouched by all the vicissitudes of life, and that's not an easy one to say, but it is not touched by any of the impacts and all that is going on and impinging upon us from all around us. There is the you that is whole now. You may be struggling outwardly. You may be hurting inwardly. And what I also declare to you and invite you to open to is that you are still sacred life at your center. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. Because you see, if life is a divine idea unfolding, then it has to eventually be that we will shed away our ignorance and fear and move out of the discord and the pain that is caused by that. So we believe basically that life itself is good. Now, the pain, the suffering, the limitation that we experience is all a product of our miscreations of life, of all of the misperceptions and conceptions of our life that have gone into creative action in our life, and that doesn't have to be. And even our problems and our challenges, we invite ourselves to embrace them as opportunities. We suggest that you get into this teaching, you resign from the plum club, the poor little old me club, and accept that what's going on has a gift for you, even if it's been difficult. The sooner we receive that gift, the sooner we have the inner wherewithal to recreate our lives and to move forward. The last of the excerpts from what we believe is such a beautiful one. It concludes this wonderful expression of Dr. Holmes. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. Your own soul, your own spirit, your own destiny.